we're gonna see where this one goes because I I wrote this down. We'll see what I can do with it. How do you feed someone? Surely their own mouth is not to be overlooked. So, I think what I'm saying with this one, what I'm trying to say with this is that um, when someone when you're thinking about how to help someone, right? Um, the easiest the easiest way to help them is to get them to help themselves, right? Um, you could think of some complex way to get the food, in their bellies, right? Or you could just, tell them to eat it, right? um, and you know, realistically, I guess you just got to convince them that it's good, that it's worth eating, that it's you know going to benefit them. It's not poison or something, right? And yeah, I don't know. I think that's about all I've got for it. Honestly, it's uh, pretty simple. So let's see if I could add something else in here. Yeah, I guess this one ties in a little bit. I'll say this too. If I can be silenced, I was not meant to be heard. And basically, I guess that just goes with pretty much the same thing. Like you can bring a horse to water. It's like that saying, but you can't make them drink. Um, you know, it's pretty much ties in with that, right? And so if, you know, if people are ready to hear it, right? If people are ready to eat, then there's no problem. It's only if they're not willing, then there's an issue. But if they're not willing, then there's no point in forcing it. Um, all right. I'll go into this as well. So we'll do this one as well. Let me ask you this. As a parent, do you want to take care of your kids like they are newborns, changing their diapers their whole life? Or do you want to watch them grow up and make a life of their own? Now, if you never take a step back and let them figure it out for themselves, how are they going to do it? At some point, enough is enough, and you have to leave them to their own devices. Some may flounder in the neglect, but others will thrive. In order to see what they are capable of, you have to take that risk. I think that's what I think that's what God is doing. They made an environment ideal for our success, and we have tainted it. But without letting us see how our own failures and problems, we can never learn from them. We are meant to be our owners. We are meant to be our owners of our lives, and in order to do that, we must first take responsibility. Find your own path, and then help others find their way too. All right, so this kind of, all three of those things I think kind of tie in a little bit with each other. Maybe. And so basically, if you, like, if you want to develop as a person, you have to be willing to fail. Because if you can't handle failure, you will never get to success. Because you may be lucky and succeed at many things, but as soon as you hit that failure, it will destroy you. And it's not a matter of if, it's when, right? This is like, you will fail at some point. Everyone always fails at some point, at something. And it's just a part of life. And it's how you learn, right? Because if there's no stress, there's no reason to evolve or improve, right? the survival of the fittest only exists because there's something, culling the weak. If everyone gets to live, then there's no reason to, improve. There's no specific selection. Everyone lives. It's fine, right? And so, in order to grow as a person, you can't constantly just stay where it's comfortable. Because if you stay where things are comfortable, you will never become the person that you want to be. Because you're not willing to take the risks. You're not willing to get hurt. You're not willing to struggle, right? You don't want to feel pain. But the pain is a part of it, right? And, when you see pain as painful and something to be feared, that's how it's going to be, right? But if you see failure as just a part of the process and you don't have such a negative connotation towards it, right? It's just like when you're like working out at the gym. If you're like, oh, my muscles are going to be so sore and this is going to hurt to lift this, right? Well, if you're afraid to lift it because it's going to hurt, you will never be able to lift it, or you'll never be able to lift more, right? Because if you're afraid of getting hurt now so that you can, do more later, then you're just never going to improve because you refuse to, right? There has to be some kind of struggle in order for you to develop a way to surpass it, right? You can't just know how to solve every problem before you know what the problem is, right? And so you have to first fail to realize what the problem is. And once you realize what the problem is, you can find a solution. But you can't just find solutions to what you don't know exists, right? You don't know what you don't know. And that's the whole thing. That's the whole part of the process. You don't know what you don't know. And so you have to figure out what you don't know. You have to fail to figure out what you don't know so that you can figure that out, so that you can, progress forward and figure out more things you don't know. And that process never ends, right? So if you're afraid of just doing a little bit of change, right, you got to accept that process never ends. Like, learning is not something to be feared. It's something to be admired, right? Because it's just everything in life does it. It's just a part of life. It's just how we exist, right? Because if there was no, if you don't adapt, then you just die. That's just how it works. And I don't know. I just don't think that people should be afraid to do that. However, if they don't want to eat, right? They don't want to, how do you get someone to eat? They can choose to eat themselves, right? And not like eat themselves. I mean, like, they can choose to eat for themselves, right? Right. And so if they're unwilling to eat food, then they're going to starve. And that is not your fault. That is not your problem, right? You brought them the food, but if they don't want to eat, so be it. If no one is going to eat, so be it, right? And all you can do is try, right? And if you fail, then that's another one for the books. All right, well, we know what doesn't work. Try again next time. And it's just a part of the process, right? And things are always changing. So just because you figured out a solution doesn't mean you've solved the problem, because maybe the problem changed, right? Maybe it changed a little bit. Because things are always evolving as well, right? So you gotta learn so that you can learn better, so that you can learn faster, so that you can learn more, so that you can progress but at a faster rate, right? I don't know. And like, I feel like I'm getting lost here. I think what I'm trying to say is clear, but if it's not, then I don't know. So, yeah. Peace out.